Head of our digital team here at Rhema Media, Justin Smith. Kia ora.
It's Marty Andrew.
Hey,
always a pleasure to be here.
It is. Here's a question that you asked me yesterday afternoon, back at you. So when it comes to podcasts, what's in your ears? What are you listening to? What's keeping you entertained in the podcast sphere?
So I am a slave to my algorithm at the moment,
Okay.
and while it has historically been I have a huge amount of interests: music, snowboarding.
Yep.
I'm a father, so there's a lot of parenting in the mix. Men's health, personal development. But at this stage of life, I am just getting absolutely inundated with finance chat.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of finance chat coming out of my podcast feed at the moment because I'm kind of in that space at the moment.
So who drives that? You said you're a slave to the algorithm. Is it what the podcast is feeding you, or is your natural interest as they change, the podcast's algorithm is catching up to your changing interest? Who's driving who?
It's interestingly a bit of both, right? Because people have experience with this in social media spaces. Apple Podcasts, Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube are fantastic examples of this. TikTok even. You give it one sniff of, I'm piquing some curiosity in this sort of genre or domain, and then all of a sudden, well, here's three more, and you like that too? Well, guess what? Now it's wall to wall.
Tidal wave.
That's exactly how
Surf's
it happens.
up. Here we go. And hey, I know surfing's a big part of your interests as well. Hey, the reason that I threw that back at you is this is a conversation that you had with some of the team here at Rhema Media, quite broadly across the organisation. This is not necessarily scientific research, but what were the findings? What was the feedback?
Well, what was really interesting was, first of all, a bit of an indictment on what a content consumer I am, because, yes, it is anecdotal going around the office and asking everyone here sort of what podcasts they listen to, what platforms are they using, what are their general interests, and it was actually really fascinating, again, highlighting just how much I do consume personally.
Yeah.
But the disparity in sort of people's content consumption habits and what they're consuming, and some assumptions that I certainly made about, personalities here that I assume would be big on certain topics, or even, the genre of podcasts themselves, who actually don't partake at all, and vice versa. A number of quiet people who were just going, love them. Yeah.
Exactly. And that does seem to be, the two extremes. People saying, ain't nobody got time for that. I never listen to podcasts because I'm busy doing these other things. And hey, that's valid. And then you've got other people that say, I've got no time to listen to the radio because I'm so busy in the podcast, and it's just bespoke and it's curated for my own personal interests instead of, I tune into the radio, I have no idea what it's going to be talking about next, neither do I. But given that for a lot of the people listening to this conversation, they're either going to be listening to it live on the radio, or perhaps they're watching on YouTube, which is a platform for podcasts. Perhaps we're talking to people in those two extreme camps, even in this conversation.
Yeah, and that's a really hard, ball that we have to juggle. We've been having lots of conversations about this very show and some potential opportunities beyond, obviously, this radio broadcast that's happening here and now, the YouTube content, of which the majority of the amazing interviews you do go on to the NZ Rhema YouTube channel. But actually, the content that you create in that space, it's slightly different when you're really focused in on that one space. And podcast content is a prime example of that, because the nature of a radio broadcast is obviously we have what we call a log, and there's a lot of times for talking. We have music, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the podcast space, it's a completely different type of conversation that you can have. So certainly for thoughts and comments, looking at ways to have a foot in both camps is a really tricky thing, because they are really distinctly different.
And still getting my head around it, honestly, because we've got Thoughts and Comments, the radio show, people listening to this at the moment. There is also the TV version of that, which goes out on Shine TV, which is a slightly different take on it. There is the YouTube presence, but we are looking at creating a podcast version of this show.
Yeah.
I engage with podcasts, but I'm still getting my head around and what type of particular flavor, what type of ingredients, where is this going to sit in the podcast sphere? How will it be a part of what we do here in the radio world, and how will it bring something new and distinct to that space. So yeah, it's quite an interesting space that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, and it's really tricky. I mean, what we're talking about is this fragmented, content consumption landscape that we exist in now across radio and television, terrestrial broadcasting, and then the sort of digital on-demand platforms. Interestingly, a lot of the people who are high podcast listeners, Di Campbell, for example, she's, as you well know, an avid reader of books, physical books. Can't get enough of them. Seen her house, wall-to-wall, things like a library.
A lot of Amish fiction in her house, honestly. Not judging, but just commenting.
And I wonder if there's a podcast out there for her.
I'm sure there is,
But she listens to a lot of podcasts, and actually I hadn't painted her necessarily as a massive podcast listener, but for her, much like it is for me and so many others who'd be listening to this who do consume podcasts, it's actually, hey, I'm doing some housework. I'm doing the dishes, the kids are in bed. I'm just going to chuck on some headphones. And so I'm consuming this digital, on-demand content in a completely different space and time of my life to say when she gets in the car in the morning and, of course, has the radio on. These podcasts especially tend to infiltrate people's lives in places and spaces that, other content mediums don't necessarily use. Hard to fold washing and read a book at the same time.
It is difficult to do that, or you can get Audible and, of course, have somebody read the book to you while you're folding the washing. I'd love to do it the other way around, fold the washing and have read a book and have somebody else fold my washing.
Wouldn't that be good?
It wouldn't be good. And hey, just wanting to encourage people that are listening to this or perhaps engaging with YouTube, the why not both space in this one as well. Not saying, I've just always engaged with media in this platform. There will, of course, be opportunities to do that. What advice would you give to people that are saying, people keep asking me, what podcasts do you listen to? And I don't even know how to answer the question. Where do you start in that regard for somebody wanting to explore what that might look like for them? What type of podcasts might they be interested in? How do they unlock that, Justin?
Well, two things. If they're looking to consume some podcast content, just searching for whatever topic or, a thing of interest that they have at the moment, current affairs, sports, music, whatever it is, typing that into YouTube or Google or ChatGPT even, with podcast in it, it's going to send you back some results. Conversely, if there's someone out there who thinks the other way around and says, I potentially have a great idea, I personally would love to talk to you about whatever podcast ideas you have.
Okay.
Because there's a few different things that make up, a really quality podcast, and the things that you're looking for if you're looking to consume a podcast, and that the algorithms are likely to serve you, and vice versa if you're looking to create one. You can either really, really nail what I call the content of the podcast, right? You don't have to be an amazing personality. The topic might even be a variety show, but if you have a really fantastic idea for how you're going to package that and segments and whatnot, much like we do with radio programs and TV programs, you're going to get a massive leg up. If you draw another circle in this Venn diagram, the other one would be leveraging personality or celebrity, and we see so much of that, right? You've got your Michelle Obama podcast, your Harry and Meghan's, and so many more, where actually the podcast, the weight is being carried by the presenter itself. Doesn't
matter what they're talking about, they're just interesting people.
Exactly. And the third one is leveraging really high quality guests, and that's a huge portion of the market now. So if you're looking to create a podcast, look into those spaces. If you're looking to consume a podcast, you're likely to be served content from an array of different podcast providers, and you're going to either fall in love with that guest who likely appears on many podcasts, that podcast because the host is fantastic and has great personality, and no matter what the guest, the podcast is good. Or it could be no-name people, in their bedrooms, which could be you at home. And if you feel like you've got a fantastic idea for a podcast that has fantastic content, then I want to talk to you.
And hey, whatever you snack on, the algorithm will feed you more of what you like. That's the way the system works. Justin, thank you for being an interesting guest on my show, the sort of person that would be likely to appear in a popular podcast, for example. You can find out more about what we're doing in that space at rhema.co.nz and watch this space more coming in the weeks ahead. Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.